What's happening, guys? Safety Liner C2 here. So a lot of people have been asking me about my opinions on the HDX2, and I don't have like a whole lot about the HDX2 specifically, just because we only have a couple pictures of it and we have pretty much zero information on it. But I have some thoughts about the HDX that I want to share that will lead into my thoughts on the HDX2. Okay, so I'm going to tell you all of this as a Thomas enthusiast who drives a Bluebird, and I'm wearing an international hat just to complete this and to not show as much bias. But simply put, the HDX is the absolute worst bus I've ever driven. So I took my bus in for an oil change after my route one day. It wasn't done by the time I got back. That's not a big deal. So I talked to the dispatcher. I said, hey, my bus isn't back. I need a spare bus. So the dispatcher says, have you ever driven a flat nose before? I said, yes, we did some training in one, so I'm capable of this. I can do this. Hands me the keys, I go out, find the bus, and immediately start finding reasons to hate it. Now, the very first thing, the thing that kind of got me going is I carry around a backpack. It's nothing too big, but this goes everywhere with me. And there was nowhere to put my backpack. There was like zero storage for me to put that aside from in a seat. And I don't just want to put my backpack in one of the seats because, you know, what if a student starts digging through it while I'm driving? Every other bus I've driven, it just goes right behind the seat because there's space there. But with the HDX, even moving the seat up, I could not fit my backpack in there. So that kind of started to put like a bad taste in my mouth because that just seems like such a simple thing to just have a little bit of space. And I know I am not the only one who carries a backpack. Like every single driver in our yard and most drivers that I know carry a backpack with their stuff in them, so at least like put a little bit of storage space in there. And speaking of the storage space, the only place that you could put anything in that bus is underneath the control panel, and you can put like a pre-trip book in there, and that's it. Like you can't fit anything of worth in there. And yes, I know there are some of the HDXs that have like overhead storage, or you can put stuff in the under storage, but we don't have overhead storage. I'm not putting anything in the under storage. So again, that just seems like such a basic thing that you should put in your bus. Just a little bit of driver storage, because you're on the bus for multiple hours a day. You gotta carry some stuff with you. So I do my pre-trip, do all my stuff, and then get going. And it took a little bit of getting used to having the wheels behind me. Like I've driven a T3, I've driven a Super Coach, I've driven an Amtran RE, and you know, I've done it before, but it takes getting used to. It's weird at first. But as soon as I really started driving, I just didn't like it. And I think it's because the driver's seat of the HDX seems to sit lower than that of like the T3, which is the next closest thing that I'm going to compare it to. And I didn't like being as low and like as close to the front. It just didn't necessarily feel safe to me. And being so close to the front is a complaint of many Type Ds that I have heard over the years. But again, just being so low to the ground in an HDX and being so close to the front, just it wasn't sitting right. So one thing I did like is the mirrors, and it's just the old HDX style mirrors. And I liked that I could just kind of like glance and get everything all in one view instead of like having to look over here to get my side views and then look at my cross view. Like everything is just in one place. And I've heard complaints about those in the past, but I really liked that. Now, another thing I did like was the steering wheel felt like centered to me. It was like pointed directly at me. And I know that's kind of a stupid thing to say, but in my vision, it's kind of angled up. So to have a steering wheel actually face me and to where I can comfortably drive it, that's nice. And that's about where all the positives stop. I've only ridden in one HDX before, and it was an enthusiast bus, and it was only for like 10 minutes, so I can't really say much about how they ride or anything. But like the dash being over to the side, I'm not sure how I feel about that, because I can see why they put it over there. Again, it's so low to the ground, and you would really have to kind of look down, and the steering wheel blocks any of the controls that would be, or any of the gauges that would be there. So I see why they put it over there, but then you can't look down at how fast you're going. You have to look over at how fast you're going, and that's not really good. And I feel like if the HDX was sitting up higher and they didn't have like all that windshield right there, like if they actually used a little bit of like of the space there, that they could put a dash or like just anything over then off to the side. But there were two specific things that I hated about it. The first one being the parking brake. It is in such an awful location. The amount of times like I would touch the parking brake with my knee was too many to count, and I did not like that. Applying the parking brake was also particularly rough because I felt like the parking brake was specifically really hard to pull on this bus, and then you have to reach under the steering wheel around your leg and then pull out while you're kind of like crouched over. It was not comfortable at all. I hated that. But by far the worst thing on that bus is the control panel. I hate that thing with a passion. The control panel is pretty much just up against the wall, so you really have to learn the control panel to just be able to quickly find what you're looking for. And of course, I looked over all of the switches before, and I was able to find what I needed. But had I just been thrown on that bus and I needed to turn on the fans or the dome lights or something, I would have really had to been looking around for a minute, because it's just not easily visible. And then on top of it being like pushed up against the wall, it's so low and far away. Like it was lower than my knees. And I feel like when I went to turn on the warning lights, I could put my arm out as far as I could go and as low as I could go, and I was still not reaching the warning lights. So then I turn on the warning lights over here, I get to the stop, and then I have to pull the parking brake under the steering wheel and then go back here and do the door control. And it's just, it's a lot of movement, which, take that for what you will, but it just seems so inconvenient to have that control panel so low. The driver's area is absolute garbage, and I don't think it was thought out at all. And this leads me into my thoughts on the HDX2. So when I heard that the HDX2 was going to have the same exact driver's area as the current HDX, I was really disappointed, because with the ICRE gone, the T3 is the only real competition for the HDX, and Thomas had an opportunity to completely overhaul, completely change everything on this bus, and they did change a good amount, and we'll get into that in a minute. But the driver's area is arguably one of the most important parts, and to just keep this same absolute garbage design that they had for 20 years, and they're just saying, oh no, we're good, let's just change it on the next one we do. That's why. Now, in all fairness, I don't think I'm the only one with these problems, because apparently Thomas is redesigning portions of the HDX2. I still think that the body is going to remain the same. They might end up redesigning part of the front. I don't think it would be anything crazy, but I do think that the changes that they are making are either like under the bus, or like for the body itself, or the driver's area, and I'm really, really hoping that they do. Now, as far as the HDX2 just being a C2, just chopped down and, having an HDX, I see why people don't like it. I'm kind of neutral to it. I've gotten used to it. The more that I look at it, the more I'm just like, that's a Thomas. It's sad to see the last of this style of Thomas body go, but I'm glad that we're seeing something new, and it is nice to see a new bus after so long. But I think as far as the looks of the bus, this is going to be like a lot of other buses. People are a little weirded out by it at first, then it starts getting out there, and more people see it in this spec, and then they finally see it in their favorite spec, and then they get more used to it as time goes on. 5-10 years down the road, we're all going to be, it's just another HDX2, and, oh no, I need to rip my eyes out, it's an HDX2. So since I've recorded this video, the HDX2 has officially been announced, and it doesn't seem that anything has changed. Ergonomic driver's dash and switch panel, easy to read offset gauge cluster. Footrest, which is something I forgot about and actually did like and wish that more buses offered. And I will give them LED lights being standard is always a plus. But this is on their website and I'm pretty positive it's just a stock photo of the HDX. But they really did just take the C2 and turn it into an HDX. And I can see why they did it. It saves them a lot of money. And as a Thomas person, more specifically a C2 person, I'm fine with that. But as a driver, when you change almost literally everything but the driver's area, that's just, it's a very, very poor choice in my opinion. Going back to the HDX, I don't really think I touched on how it drove. As far as I remember, it was just kind of a meh experience. Like, it wasn't anything to write home about, but it wasn't just like a terrible drive. I think it just felt worse to me because of all of these things that I disliked about it. I do want to drive another HDX on more than just like my afternoon route, just to get more of a feel. So like if I was put in an HDX for a week, would I still feel the same now that I've you know, had a week of driving it compared to you know, 5 hours or whatever I had in there? But yeah, from a driver's perspective, that was a terrible bus. Again, I say this as a Thomas person driving a Bluebird wearing an international hat, but it's not something that I would want to have as my normal route bus. So I really hope that whatever changes they're making are going to be positive changes, like really, really good changes, major changes, and again, specifically on the driver's area. Because if all they do is just, you know, slap the C2 body on and call it good, then as a driver, I would not want anything to do with it. Anyways, I'm gonna wrap it up there. Those are my thoughts on it, the HDX and the HDX2. Whenever we get more information on the HDX2, whatever changes they made, when it gets officially released, all of that, we'll do a more in-depth video and I'll reshare some of my thoughts on that, and hopefully by then I will have driven another HDX so that we can get a little more experience with that. But I won't take any more of your time. Thank you guys so much for watching. I always do appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe right down here. It's a magical white button that says you are now subscribed to Safety Liner C2. Make sure you comment up here, down here, over here, or over here. I don't know what they put down in care they put it. Make sure you also give this video a thumbs up, or I'm going to be stuck in an HDX for my route. And make sure you also share this video with a friend. Show it to your mom, show it to your dad, show it to a guy on a random street. I don't care, don't let anything happen to you. So yeah guys, that's going to do it for this video, and thanks for watching.